Hi, I'm Miss Huffman.
And I'm Miss B.
Welcome to
Two Teachers,
a place where we can read
and learn
together.
Like and subscribe.
Hello again, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me today and for choosing to read this story along with me. This story is titled Sit In: How Four Friends Stood Up by Sitting Down. This story is brought to us today by a kindergartner in Mrs. Huffman's class, Henry Ha. Thanks, Henry, for sharing this story with me so that I may share with all of kindergarten, and we can learn more about what it means to sit in. How four friends stood up by sitting down. This story is a little longer than our usual stories we read in kindergarten, so I would like for you to take a moment to settle in where you are, to sit in and get comfortable. Take a couple calming breaths. Ready to learn. As we read this story, you might experience a mix of emotions. You could experience comfortable emotions and feelings like happy, calm, peaceful. You might experience uncomfortable feelings and emotions like frustrated or angry. Or you might experience a mix of both comfortable and uncomfortable as we read. Any emotions that you feel as we read this story are normal and are okay to feel in your bodies. But I want you to take a moment as we read to really check in with yourself. Make sure you're still focused with your eyes and ears, and make sure you're still listening and understanding what's going on in these illustrations. And then check in with your body. How does it make you feel as we read about it? The illustrations in this story are beautiful, and so I'm going to focus on just the story so that you can see all the details. And as we focus in on the story, I want you to focus in on your body too as we read. At the end, we'll learn more and we'll check in to see, how did the story make us feel? Let's get to it. Let me share with you the story. This story is called Sit In: How Four Friends Stood Up by Sitting Down. Written by Andrea Davis Pinkney. Illustrated by Brian Pinkney. Sit In: How Four Friends Stood Up by Sitting Down. We must meet hate with love. These were Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words that got them started. Four hungry friends, eager to eat. Each took a seat at the Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. David, Joseph, Franklin, and Ezell sat quiet and still, with hearts full of hope, with Dr. King's words strong and close. They were college students with the plan. It was February 1st, 1960. They didn't need menus. Their order was simple: a donut and coffee with cream on the side. Woolworth's was very busy, so the friends waited, patiently, silently, without a fuss. They were the only black kids at the counter. David, Joseph, Franklin, and Ezell sat while everyone else got served. At first, they were treated like the hole in a donut, invisible. Others tried to ignore them. The waitress watched and refused them. This was a sign of the times. Whites only. This was the law's recipe for segregation. Its instructions were easy to follow. Do not combine white people with black people. Segregation was a bitter mix. Now it was the friends' turn to ignore and refuse. They ignored the law and refused to leave until they were served. Those kids had a recipe too, a new brew called integration. It was just as simple. Combine black with white to make sweet justice. For them, Integration was better than any chef's special. Integration was finer than homemade cake. Integration was a recipe that would take time. So, David, Joseph, Franklin, and Azel sat quietly and still, with hearts full of hope, with Dr. King's words strong and close. Be loving enough to absorb evil. They sat straight and proud, and waited, and wanted. A donut and coffee with cream on the side. After sitting and waiting, a police officer came. But the four friends wouldn't leave. The police officer didn't know what to do. The students were doing nothing wrong. No crime in sitting. No harm in being quiet. No danger in looking hungry. The officer left the lunch counter without doing anything. The Woolworths man turned off the lights. He announced, "Woolworths is closed." So the customers left, including four friends who went home to dinner, where they were served first. News had already spread about the sit-in. David, Joseph, Franklin, and Azel got their names in the paper. The next day, February 2nd, 1960, more students showed up at the lunch counter. Sitting still for what was right. No reservations needed at Woolworths. The students seated themselves. They were dressed in their best clothes. They were polite and determined. No guesswork for the waitress. The young people knew the menu by heart. They ordered. No food came. They sat in silence and waited and wanted. A donut and coffee with cream on the side. The waitress reminded them, whites only. But those kids wouldn't budge. They didn't move. Until they were served, they refused. All they wanted was some food. A donut and coffee with cream on the side. To pass the time, the students read their school books. They wrote in their journals. They finished their homework. They didn't need to read the menu, so they studied for tomorrow's test. What had started in Greensboro spread faster than a grease fire. There were lunch counter protests in Hampton, Virginia, Nashville, Tennessee, Montgomery, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia, and many other southern towns. If lunch counters could go from whites only to all welcome, if segregation could turn to integration, if black people and white people could break bread together, everyone would pass the test. Everyone would score high. A+ with that coffee and cream on the side. But many folks were not motivated to make that grade. As the sit-ins grew, angry people gave the students a big dose of hatred, served up hot and heaping, coffee poured down their backs, milkshakes flung in their faces, pepper thrown in their eyes, ketchup not on the fries, but dumped on their heads. They yelled at the students, "We don't serve your kind. Go home. Goodbye." The students wanted to lash out, but couldn't. They wanted to strike back, but didn't. Sitting still was so hard. Practicing peace while others showed hatred was tougher than any school test. Now, there were news cameras filming the sit-ins. The viewers at home watched it all on TV. The students were more determined than ever to show the world the true meaning of peace. So they sat in silence, with hearts full of hope, with Dr. King's dream true and close. There were the words that kept them going. We must meet violence with non-violence. The students sat proud and still and waited and wanted a donut and coffee with cream on the side. Soon, the sit-ins grew bigger and wider. White students joined their black friends to protest the unfair treatment by restaurant owners who would not serve food to black patrons. They also opposed segregated libraries, buses, parks, and pools. With so many students gathered, people got scared there would be fighting. They were afraid of all those youngsters grouped together for a cause. Even though the students were committed to peace, the police now took action. They accused the students of loafing. They arrested them. They took them to jail. The students didn't resist. They didn't fight. Instead, they sang freedom songs to keep the peace. They held Dr. King's words steady and close. Demonstrate calm dignity. Soon, folks were so busy arguing about who was right and who was wrong that they stopped going to Woolworths and other segregated places. Some shops were forced to integrate and keep their businesses alive. But the struggle was far from over. In April, an activist named Ella Baker organized a student leadership conference at Shaw University in North Carolina to help the young demonstrators. With Ella, the students formed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Inspired by Dr. King, they came up with powerful words of their own. These are the words that became the SNCC slogan. We are all leaders. When President John F. Kennedy got a taste of SNCC's integration, he didn't sit in, he stepped in. On June 11, 1963, the president went on TV. He urged Americans to treat each other with fairness. He then told Congress to take action against segregation. This became the Civil Rights Act of 1964. On July 2, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson made the act a law. It banned segregation in public places. The hard work and courage of those brave students paid off. They had taken a bite out of segregation. Now it was time to savor equality. Now they were ready for a big step of freedom. Their order was simple: a double dose of peace with nonviolence on top. Hold the hate, leave off the injustice. Now, the students had the right recipe for integration. The steps were easy to follow. Step 1, start with love. Step 2, add conviction. Step 3, season with hope. Step 4, extra faith to flavor. Step 5, mix black people with white people. Step 6, let unity stand. Step 7, fold in change. Step 8, sprinkle with dignity. Step 9, bake until golden. Step 10, serve immediately. Makes enough for all. After weeks of sitting with while their backsides ached, after months of being still when their feet fell asleep, after years of praying for laws to change, when they were so hungry for equality, the young people finally got what they ordered. It was worth the wait. It was served to them exactly how they wanted it. Well done. And oh, integration sure tasted good. Those courageous young people enjoyed every bit. They came back to Woolworths for seconds and thirds and for many helpings after that. When the sit-ins were all done, the students left a big tip: a donut and coffee with cream on the side. It's not about food, it's about pride. These were the words that filled them up. Civil Rights Timeline. The Greensboro sit-ins were one of many events that comprised a time in America's history known as the Civil Rights Movement, a series of happenings in which people came together to end racial discrimination. Here is a timeline of important civil rights movements that came before and after the Greensboro sit-ins, and that led to equality among people. Today, I will not read all the words of the timeline, but I want to mention that the person we have been studying, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is involved in a lot of these dates. Here he is, the drawing. On August 28, 1923, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivers his world-famous "I Have a Dream" speech, while hundreds of thousands of listeners gather at Lincoln Memorial as part of the March on Washington. And here, a final helping. Pictured here, this is a real photograph. Left to right is Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, William Smith, and Clarence Henderson, who sat at the Woolworth's lunch counter on the second day of the sit-ins. This story is a nonfiction story. It really happened. It was illustrated and drawn, so it did not include photographs, but it was meant to teach you more about what it means to sit in and about how 4 friends stood up by sitting down as well. Thank you for taking the time to read the story with me today.